owes my family an apology. More so because a lot of times he'll have this perspective of it was a joke or I was trying to be funny, and it did not land at all.
People always say the quiet ones are the ones you need to watch. They're the ones who observe everything while everybody else is running their mouths. And if you've been following Love and Marriage, Huntsville from the beginning, then you already know Kimmi Grant has always been that quiet storm. She's calm. She's patient. She tries her best to keep the peace even when the drama around her is spinning out of control.
Make a person feel a different way about any individual that they don't know. She doesn't know you.
That doesn't matter. She shouldn't feel that comfortable to talk to my husband about.
But recently, baby, that calm turned into fire. And nobody, not the fans, not the cast, and especially not Marsau Scott, expected what she delivered on camera. It was one of those moments where the whole room changed. The energy snapped. And for the first time in a long time, somebody finally stood up to the slick talk, the deflection, and the emotional games Marsau has built his whole reputation on. The man has made a career out of sounding right even when he's dead wrong. But here's the twist: this time, he ran into someone who didn't just hear him, she's lived through enough to see straight through him. And when Kimmi opened her mouth and exposed everything she had been holding in for seasons, it shook the entire show. What nobody expected was how raw it was.
Did it take her to say okay?
I don't know.
Seconds. I wasn't even there, and I know it took seconds.
It wasn't seconds.
It was seconds.
How honest it felt. And how fast the clip spread the moment it aired. It wasn't just drama, it was truth finally coming out of someone who had stayed silent way too long. But to understand why this moment hit the way it did, you have to look back at everything that's been building up. Because this explosion didn't come out of nowhere. It wasn't a random outburst. It was the result of years of subtle disrespect, emotional pressure, ignored boundaries, and the quiet pain of a woman who had faced real battles in her personal life while still trying to keep her dignity intact in front of the cameras. And the crazy part?
I wanted to make sure that no one is misled by this information. First of all, my name is Maurice Scott. Maurice Jefferson Scott, Sr. And if you're gonna do research on a Maurice Scott, make sure that you're researching the right person.
The moment Kimmi snapped, everybody finally saw the version of Marsau the fans have been whispering about for years. For a long time, viewers saw Kimmi as the steady heart of the show, the adult in the room when everyone else acted like emotional toddlers. She wasn't the loud one. She wasn't the one stirring the pot or jumping into arguments just for attention. If anything, she avoided conflict so much that some people mistook her silence for acceptance. But that couldn't be further from the truth. She saw everything. She heard everything. She just chose her battles carefully. And behind the scenes, her life wasn't anything close to peaceful.
This very second in his life has tunnel vision. His focus is on getting custody of Monster.
I would think he would have had that conversation with me first before extending that invitation. So I'm bothered.
Her health journey had already taken a toll on her emotionally and mentally. She went through treatments. She faced days where she wasn't sure what the next chapter of her life would look like. Yet she kept showing up for her family, for Maurice, and for the show with more grace than anybody could have expected. That alone should have earned her a level of respect bigger than any storyline. But respect from Marsau? That was always tricky. From the early seasons, Marsau built this persona that he was the smartest one in every room. Every disagreement somehow turned into a lecture. Every complaint from his wife or anyone else became a moment for him to twist words, turn things around, or make people feel like they were confused or dramatic. It was slick. It was subtle. And it worked until it didn't. Because even though Kimmi never made it her mission to go after him, he kept crossing lines. The jokes that weren't really jokes. The dismissive smirks. The way he'd dominate conversations and make the women around him feel unheard. And while Letitia felt the brunt of it in her own marriage, Kimmi watched it with her own eyes. But what truly pushed her over the edge wasn't a playful insult or a petty argument. It was a moment during filming, a moment that wasn't even supposed to hit that deep, when Marsau made a comment about her health journey. It was subtle, almost thrown away like it didn't matter. But for Kimmi, who had fought harder battles than any of the men sitting at that table ever had to face, it cut deep. Her journey wasn't a punchline. It wasn't an exaggeration. It wasn't something to be brushed off so he could appear logical or superior in a conversation. It was real. It was painful. It was part of what shaped her into the calm, grounded woman she is today. So when she finally snapped, when that calm voice turned sharp and that patience disappeared, it wasn't anger. It was clarity. And what she said next changed everything. The scene started normal. Just another group discussion where emotions were already shaky and everybody seemed a little too ready to defend themselves. Marsau, in classic fashion, threw out one of those comments that sound wise on the surface but are actually dismissive if you look closely. Something about emotions not equaling facts. Something about people overreacting. It was the exact kind of line he always used to dodge responsibility. But here's the twist this time, he said it to the wrong person. Before he could even finish his thought, Kimmi cut in. And it wasn't the polite interruption she usually gives. It was firm. Sharp. Controlled but carrying years of swallowed frustration. She told him straight up, he constantly minimizes people's feelings. That he uses big words and clever phrasing to shut others down when he feels uncomfortable. That he hides behind humor, logic, and deflection to avoid accountability. And she didn't stop there. She brought up examples. She brought up history. She said what fans have been yelling at their TVs about for seasons. Marsau doesn't just misunderstand people, he manipulates conversations to protect himself. She pointed out how he treated Letitia. She pointed out how he dismissed her concerns. She even referenced moments where he twisted so much that she walked away thinking she was the problem. Kimmi laid it all out so clearly that even the audience watching from home felt the tension through the screen. And the more she spoke, the more Marsau lost that fake calm he always tries to maintain. He shifted in his seat. He laughed nervously. He tried to use jokes to regain control. He even tried to interrupt, but she didn't let him. For once, the man who always loved being the loudest was stuck listening. She didn't owe anyone silence. She didn't owe anyone patience while they disrespected her or others. She didn't owe Marsau the benefit of the doubt just because he was family through marriage. She owed herself honesty and she delivered it. The emotional impact was huge. You could see it in the way Maurice looked at her with more understanding. You could see it in how Letitia slowly started setting her own boundaries. You could see it in how the women on the show began moving differently, less scared of backlash and more determined to speak up. Because once one person cracks the silence, it gives everybody else permission to stop holding their breath. And when Kimmi spoke, she didn't just speak for herself. She spoke for every woman who ever felt dismissed. For every wife who questioned her own feelings because a man twisted her words. For every person who stayed quiet just to keep the peace. The cameras caught everything, the crack in his confidence, the discomfort in his eyes, and the moment he realized this wasn't going to be one of those conversations he could spin his way out of. And when that episode aired, fans lost it. Social media exploded within minutes. Clips of Kimmi calling him out went viral. Fans replayed the scene, breaking down his body language like they were professional analysts. People posted side-by-side moments from older seasons, pointing out how many times he had dismissed Letitia, how often he talked circles around people, and how long they had been waiting for someone to finally hold him accountable. What nobody expected was how unified the fans were. Usually, the cast has divided support. Some people like one couple more than another, some defend certain behavior. But this time, it was almost unanimous. Kimmi wasn't just speaking for herself, she was speaking for viewers, other cast members, and even Letitia, who had spent years trying to make her own voice heard. One comment went viral. If Kimmi finally said it, you know it's real. She doesn't speak unless she means it. And honestly, that was the truth. But while fans were praising her, Marsau was scrambling. He jumped on Instagram, posting little quotes that hinted at editing and misunderstanding. He filmed stories saying people believe what they want and implying that production made things look worse than they were. It was classic deflection. No real accountability. No apology. Just vague statements that only made viewers more frustrated. Then he went on a podcast. Same attitude. Same excuses. Same performance. He talked in circles. He claimed context was missing. He said the scene wasn't the full picture. But he never addressed what Kimmi actually said. He never acknowledged how his actions affected people. He didn't even mention her by name, like avoiding her made the issue disappear. But the fans caught on. They called it narcissistic behavior. They noted how familiar this pattern was. They noticed he still refused to take even a small amount of responsibility. And here's the part that stung the most: Letitia didn't defend him. She didn't post. She didn't speak up. She didn't pretend everything was fine. She stayed silent, and her silence was louder than any statement she could have made. Behind the scenes, things were falling apart faster than Marsau could control. Letitia had already been struggling in her marriage. And Kimmi's confrontation didn't just embarrass Marsau, it validated everything Letitia had been saying for years. The emotional distance. The controlling communication. The way he made her feel like her concerns didn't matter unless he agreed with them. People close to her started whispering that she'd been looking into her business ties with him. That she wanted to know what options she had financially. That she was finally considering moves she never had the courage to entertain before. And Kimmi's words? They gave her the confirmation she needed. But the drama didn't stop with the women. Maurice was stuck in the worst place possible between his wife and his brother. He had seen some of the same behavior Kimmi was calling out, but he never spoke on it publicly. Now he couldn't avoid it. His loyalty was being tested from every direction. And the pressure? It was intense. Family gatherings got awkward. Filming became heavier. Every conversation felt like a minefield. And Marsau kept pretending everything was fine, even though the cracks were everywhere. The truth is, he was losing control not just of the narrative, but of the people around him who used to tolerate his behavior. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. Kimmi's explosion didn't just expose Marsau, it changed her. All this time, she carried herself with grace because she didn't want to be swallowed by drama. But speaking her truth didn't make her messy, it made her powerful. It showed a version of her that the viewers had never seen before. A woman tired of shrinking herself. A woman tired of letting harmful behavior slide. A woman ready to protect her peace. Her journey with her health already gave her a sense of clarity about life. But this moment took it further. She realized she didn't owe anyone silence. She didn't owe anyone patience while they disrespected her or others. She didn't owe Marsau the benefit of the doubt just because he was family through marriage. She owed herself honesty, and she delivered it. The emotional impact was huge. You could see it in the way Maurice looked at her with more understanding. You could see it in how Letitia slowly started setting her own boundaries. You could see it in how the women on the show began moving differently, less scared of backlash and more determined to speak up. Because once one person cracks the silence, it gives everybody else permission to stop holding their breath. And when Kimmi spoke, she didn't just speak for herself. She spoke for every woman who ever felt dismissed. For every wife who questioned her own feelings because a man twisted her words. For every person who stayed quiet just to keep the peace.